The Galactic Council Chamber was a place where the most powerful and advanced species of the known universe gathered. The room, built from polished starglass and orbiting the ancient world of Velarix, echoed with a mix of languages, signals, and psychic pulses. It was here that empires made decisions, alliances were formed, and lesser species were often reminded of their place. In the center of this grand chamber stood a single human commander, Rhea Calder of Earth, dressed in a dark, plain uniform with a silver insignia that had no glow, no tech-laced embroidery, no built-in AI assistant. Behind her floated a holographic projection of Earth's fleet, aging warships with scarred hulls, blocky designs, outdated thruster systems, and gun placements that had not changed in nearly a century. The response from the council was immediate and loud: laughter, mockery, even pity. A tall, crystalline figure representing the Varelian Accord, one of the oldest spacefaring civilizations, leaned forward and said with a voice that chimed like breaking glass, "This is what Earth offers the galaxy. These rusting relics? You bring scrap metal to a war against the Graelxan swarm?" Another ambassador, a sleek, scale-covered creature from the Zeal Dominion, hissed, "It's not even war-ready. I doubt those things can survive hyperspace without falling apart." Rhea did not respond right away. Her expression was unreadable, neither offended nor afraid. She slowly looked around the vast chamber, her eyes scanning the faces of beings who controlled fleets capable of melting moons and shifting stars. All of them expected her to make excuses or ask for help. But she did neither. Instead, she tapped the console on her wrist, and the hologram changed. It now showed the same fleet but in motion. The ISS Defiance, ISS Anchorage, Black Horizon, and more, all preparing for deployment, their engines warming up, and their crew's men and women from Earth's many nations climbing into their chairs and control rooms. The video played in silence. No fancy music, no proud narration. Just the cold, honest hum of human war machines coming alive. "The Earth fleet left orbit 12 hours ago," Rhea said at last. "They're heading to the Raylon sector to meet the Graelxan swarm before it reaches the colony worlds." That statement wiped the laughter away faster than any insult. The chamber went still. "Wait," said the Yalari diplomat, blinking its four eyes in disbelief. "You already launched your fleet? Without council coordination?" "We received the distress signal. Civilians were under threat. There was no time for a vote." "You don't even understand what you're facing," another ambassador snapped. "The swarm is not just dangerous. They are extinction-level predators. They adapt to energy weapons, overwhelm shields, and consume everything in their path. Whole civilizations have fallen in days." "I know," Rhea replied calmly. "And we've faced extinction before." The memory of Earth's long and brutal history whispered quietly beneath her words: world wars, climate disasters, famines, pandemics, civil collapse, and the slow climb back each time. Humanity had never had the luxury of peace for long, and it showed in the way they built things not pretty, but tough. Not sleek, but tested. A projection appeared beside her, showing grainy live footage from the fleet's forward ship, ISS Defiance. Inside its bridge, smoke trailed from an overhead vent. Metal creaked. An officer wiped sweat from his brow as he adjusted a manual targeting system that had been rebuilt 3 times since its original installation. And yet, there was something electric in the air: determination, grit, that unspoken code among humans, that failure was simply not allowed while others depended on them. The council chamber buzzed with low conversations, murmurs of confusion and disbelief. Some began checking their own data feeds, confirming Earth's movements. Others whispered predictions of total destruction. But none of them, not one, understood why humanity would charge headfirst into a battle that smarter species avoided. Earth had no major allies yet. No reputation. No advanced weaponry. They had nothing to prove unless, of course, they were trying to show something the Council had forgotten. The Varelian ambassador stood again, its translucent form shimmering in the artificial lights. "You will not be praised for your recklessness, Commander. You send your people to die. When the swarm tears through them, the galaxy will see your place clearly." Rhea gave a faint smile, almost too small to notice. We don't fight for praise. We fight so others won't have to. Somewhere in deep space, the human fleet was accelerating. Without quantum shields. Without advanced cloaking. Just mass, momentum, and munitions. The Grailxan were already moving toward the Raylon sector, unaware that Earth's ships were hunting them, not waiting to be attacked, but choosing where to strike first. It was not the kind of thinking the Council was used to. Most species calculated every move, measured survival odds, followed war protocols. But humans didn't play by galactic rules. They brought their own rules. Rules forged in desperation, trial, and survival. Rhea stepped back from the central platform, her part said. As she walked past the rows of elite diplomats, some turned their backs in disapproval. Others stared, trying to understand the strange expression on her face, not pride, not fear, not arrogance. It was something else. A certainty. Behind her, the hologram continued running. Earth's fleet, scratched, welded, and grumbling, was moving toward war with machines older than many counselors had ever seen. And yet, they were not slowing down. They were accelerating. One soft voice, barely heard above the quiet, spoke from the shadows where an observer from the Karun Mind clan sat, ancient and wise. You laugh at rust, but you forget what rust means. What do you mean? Asked another. Rust only forms on things that survive long enough to age. The chamber fell into silence, not out of respect, but because for the first time, no one was sure what came next. If the humans failed, it would be another forgotten tragedy, another minor species extinguished. But if they survived, if they somehow won, then the galaxy would never look at Earth the same way again. Far beyond the shimmering council chambers, beyond the orbit of the last organized resistance, Earth's fleet emerged from hyperspace near Raylon 3, a cold, dusty moon, barely holding an atmosphere, spinning in the shadow of a dying gas giant. This was not a place of glory, but it was now a battlefield, and the humans were ready. The rusty ships of Earth, blackened by time and held together with more willpower than metal, dropped from warp with a thunderous silence that rippled through local space. Their hulls groaned, their engines sputtered as if coughing back into life, but they held. The ISS Defiance, leading the line, was the first to power up its outdated weapons systems cannons that still used kinetic slugs, railguns that hummed with electromagnetic charge, and old nuclear torpedoes sealed tight behind launch bays that had been repaired by hand a dozen times. Captain Elias Briggs stood on the bridge, chewing the end of an unlit cigar, his gaze fixed on the growing darkness ahead, where no stars could be seen. That blackness was not empty space, it was the Grailxan swarm. They were coming fast, millions of bioships shaped like insects, tentacled creatures grown around organic tech, moving in unnatural unity as if the vacuum of space belonged to them. They didn't broadcast messages or negotiate. They didn't blink or breathe. They consumed. Every world, every station, every satellite in their path had been turned into biomass. Council records showed them adapting to every kind of energy weapon, learning frequencies, and bending strategies to their will. But what they hadn't faced yet was Earth's way of fighting, chaotic, unpredictable, and brutally direct. Captain Briggs raised a hand, and the command passed through the fleet. Engines flared. Every ship began a coordinated push forward, not retreating or forming a defensive perimeter, but diving headlong into the approaching swarm. Even Council observers watching from hidden satellites were stunned. Most civilizations would wait for the swarm to come and then try to hold the line, but humans were launching themselves straight into the fire. The first wave of swarm creatures came like a storm. Hundreds of fleshy, insect-shaped ships screeching through space with acid-filled mouths and limbs that split open to launch organic projectiles. But the ISS Widow, an old Earth corvette with exposed wiring and a single working shield generator, spun between the creatures like a knife, releasing EMP bursts that disrupted their nervous systems. Nearby, ISS Hammerfall, once a mining ship, fired a salvo of molten debris from a modified industrial cannon, ripping through the swarm's front lines. No other species had ever used space junk as ammo, but Earth engineers were never short on creativity. The swarm pressed in, but the humans pressed harder. Marines launched in drop pods, thick metal coffins propelled at terrifying speeds. They didn't wait for clean landings. They smashed into the hive ships, drilling their way inside before the outer shells could heal, and then fought with flamethrowers, shotguns, and plasma blades. The humans didn't use elegant warbots or precision drones. They used themselves. They adapted. When one ship lost half its propulsion, it redirected its remaining thrust into a nearby asteroid and used it as cover while its crew manually fired missiles through breached hull panels. Council eyes watching the battle began to question everything they'd assumed. The humans weren't winning because of technology, they were winning because they refused to let the swarm dictate the terms of the fight. A Council scout drone tried to analyze the human battle pattern but failed to find logic in it. That was the key. Earth's forces weren't following the cold calculations of machine learning, they were relying on instinct, on gut decisions made in seconds, on captains who had grown up solving problems without clean instructions. The Defiance powered forward, its crew fighting constant overheating, system errors, and weapon malfunctions, but still firing. They knew the cost. They didn't care. They had seen what the swarm had done to helpless colonies. They had heard the last calls from mining crews whose screams were cut off mid-transmission. So they kept fighting. In the engineering bay, mechanics with grease on their faces and tools clutched in tired hands rerouted power by hand, bypassing broken conduits with whatever they had. In the gunner stations, veterans of Earth's civil wars aimed manually, adjusting for every misfire. The sky around Raylon 3 became a graveyard of shattered bioships and burning debris, but the swarm wasn't done. A new shape appeared, a larger hive ship, the size of a small moon, pulsing with light. It was the Swarm Queen's personal guard. No Council fleet had ever survived an encounter with one of these. The air aboard every human ship turned cold as the enemy's presence distorted gravity. But still, the Defiance charged ahead. Captain Briggs, without blinking, ordered a full-thrust maneuver directly at the giant. His officers hesitated. "Do it," he said, gripping the rail with one hand. "We go through, not around." The ship accelerated. Hull plates rattled. The reactor groaned. Then came the flash, a massive blast, as the Defiance tore through the enemy's outer layers, punching a hole where none should have existed. The last thing the bridge recorded before blackout was Briggs laughing, not madly, but with a strange peace, as if this was exactly where he'd always meant to be. The Queen's Guard was stunned, its formation broken. Earth's other ships swarmed into the gap, using the moment to destroy more vessels before falling back. Not retreating, repositioning. When the battle finally paused, when the swarm retreated into deeper space to regroup, a thing it had never done before, there was only static for a moment. Then a single transmission from the remaining human ships lit up the Council channel, line held. Awaiting orders. The Council's silent observers, watching from behind cloaked stations, stared at the battlefield. They had expected to witness failure, perhaps even Earth's extinction. But what they saw was something they couldn't explain. Humanity hadn't just fought, they had forced the swarm to retreat. In all Council history, no one had done that. Not with older tech. Not with rusted ships. Not with analog systems powered by patched reactors. But Earth had. And now, every species watching had the same question echoing in their minds: if this is what humans can do with junk, what would they be like if they had real power? The silence after the battle near Raylon 3 stretched across space like a heavy blanket, and for the first time in years, the Grailxan swarm was not moving forward, it was retreating. The human fleet floated in the aftermath of chaos, scarred and scattered, but not broken. Ship hulls were darkened with burn marks. Life support systems were flickering, and half of their vessels had lost long-range communications. But they were still there, still holding the line where no one else ever had. The ISS Anchorage drifted slowly as its engineers patched a breach with makeshift shielding made from scrap and broken panels, while medics inside the dim-lit infirmary worked without rest to stabilize injured crew with limited supplies. Meanwhile, in the command ship Widow, Captain Naima Voss watched the tactical map update, showing the swarm's movement disorganized, confused, retreating toward uncharted sectors. The strange quiet that followed the human victory unsettled everyone more than the battle itself. The swarm had never pulled back before, and that fact alone told Voss and her officers that something deeper was unfolding. On Earth, the news hadn't yet reached the public, but within the council, a storm was rising. Debates turned into arguments, strategies into accusations. Council members struggled to explain how Earth's Rust fleet, dismissed as a historical relic, had succeeded where advanced fleets had failed. Some called it luck. Others called it desperation. But a few began to suspect something more dangerous, something they hadn't seen coming. The truth was, humans didn't fight like other species because humans didn't live like other species. While the Council had evolved in sterile peace, developing technology with the luxury of stability, Earth had always been a world of storms. Every step of progress had been carved from disaster, crisis, or war. So when the swarm came, Earth didn't panic. It reacted the way it always had, fast, furious, and without waiting for permission. Back on Raylon 3, the cleanup began. Human Marines searched the wrecks of dead hive ships, documenting anything useful. What they found was disturbing. Deep inside the remains of a massive Grailxan Queen vessel, they discovered fragments of stolen tech not from Earth, but from several advanced Council species. Integrated parts, encrypted cores partially digested and merged with the hive structure, as if the swarm had been studying their enemies for years. What frightened the Marines was how perfectly the alien biology had adapted it. The swarm wasn't just consuming. It was learning. It was upgrading. When the data was sent back to Earth Command, the truth hit hard. The Grailxan weren't retreating because they were defeated, they were adapting to human warfare. Earth had revealed a new style of fighting, and the swarm was retreating only to adjust. That knowledge sent a chill through every human officer in the fleet. Time was now the enemy. The swarm had seen what humans could do, and next time they would be ready. But humans didn't waste time either. They went to work. In the hangars of surviving ships, engineers and soldiers worked side by side. Nothing was thrown away. Broken drones were stripped for parts. Damaged weapons were rebuilt using ancient blueprints, sometimes drawn by hand. Where AI systems failed, old analog backups were activated. Where reactors ran too hot, coolant was hand-fed through manual valves. They called it patchwork warfare, but in truth, it was more than that. It was a mindset: survive now, rebuild later, never stop. Aboard the ISS Bastion, Lieutenant Arjun Miles initiated an experimental operation. He ordered his crew to rewire parts of the ship's propulsion with recovered hive biocircuits, knowing it could fail. When it didn't, and the engine doubled its output for 30 seconds before collapsing, they laughed not because it was funny, but because even failure meant learning. The human fleet wasn't resting. It was evolving too, in its own messy way. Council ships that had been sent to observe the humans began reporting strange behavior. Instead of returning to base for repairs, Earth ships were moving deeper into dark sectors, creating ambush points, building traps, and mapping asteroid fields for tactical advantage. They were turning the edges of the galaxy into their battlefield not because they were told to, but because they understood something others didn't. The war had already changed, and waiting was a luxury no one could afford. On a deep space relay station orbiting a dead star, Earth's engineers activated a long-forgotten communications beacon and sent encrypted signals back toward Earth's older colonies, many of which had been cut off since humanity first joined the Council. Within days, new ships began arriving, not shiny, but serviceable. Converted freighters, refitted cargo haulers, and even private ships armed with outdated railguns. The fleet was growing, not through official channels, but through a quiet rally call answered by old veterans, independent traders, and forgotten settlements that remembered what it meant to fight for survival. The Council noticed. Whispers spread quickly. Some said Earth was building an army. Others said Earth had declared war on the swarm without approval. A few even accused Earth of provoking the enemy to gain political power. But none of them truly understood what was happening. Earth wasn't preparing for war. It was already in one. And it was fighting it the only way it knew how, by never stopping, never waiting, and never assuming anyone else would save them. In one dark corner of the galaxy, a council outpost picked up strange movement, a signature too large to be a single swarm ship. Before they could investigate, the outpost went dark. No signal. No survivors. The last image captured showed what appeared to be a newly evolved swarm structure, armored with metal plates taken from previous battles, possibly human. The enemy had learned fast. But so had Earth. A message from Admiral Lynn Park, the highest-ranking human officer in the outer sectors, was sent directly to Earth's fleet and Earth's allied colonies. Her face was tired, but her voice was steady. The swarm is changing. So are we. They think our rust is weakness. Let them. Rust doesn't sleep. It spreads. It clings. It survives storms and salt and time. So will we. That message, transmitted on every human frequency, became a rally cry, not of pride, truth. Earth was not perfect. Its fleet was not strong by traditional standards. But it was relentless, and that made it dangerous. As the stars shifted and the next battle approached, the human fleet moved like shadows, silent, unpolished, and completely unwilling to wait for anyone else to decide the fate of the galaxy.